All right, cool. We're good. Good to go.
Well, it's a good day when you get to talk with Pat Barrett. I mean, it's just a total treat. Excited to have you, man, back on the podcast. How you doing today? Doing well?
Dude, I'm doing great. I am right now I'm getting flashbacks from like COVID work at home school vibes because my kids they're out for the break, kind of. It's like they're moving schools right now. Like their school was renting a building and is finishing up another property, but they have to be out of school for a couple of weeks. And now we're doing like work
Ah,
from home again. And I don't know if homeschool parents I just respected so much. Help, help me.
oh my God, yeah, bro.
I just feel like
So
through a wormhole, and I'm in 3 years ago right now.
I love the fact that my kids go to school. I mean, they have school this week, and then I think Monday next week or something. But we did like the RV thing forever, and so we like homeschooled our kids in a freaking RV for like 4 years. And so now
Now
that
that
they get up and what's that?
only 4 years,
Yeah, only. It's just a flash in the pan.
rushed over 4 years. Like, oh yeah, well, I've done three. I just haven't done four. That's a lot. Four is a lot.
Right. But bro, the fact that they get up and go to school is just it's wonderful. I love my kids. It probably sounds like we hate our kids. We hate our
Oh,
children.
yeah,
We
we love
love we love our we love our children, but we love the fact.
people.
Yes, that's exactly right. Bro, so I like this little like frame that you got here. I want you to tell me about these instruments. Like, so tell me about each of those guitars and that piano. Like any special meaning.
No special meaning. I just love them. So I got the J200 on the wall. I played that guitar forever. Bought it on Craigslist, like who knows, 15 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Played so many albums with that guitar. And then in the corner, you can't see it. I have my black Hummingbird. That's the acoustic I play now. And then we got a 335, which I don't play electric a lot um, these days, especially. I just have such amazing guys that play with me. I just feel like I'm getting in the way sometimes.
Yep.
So, um, yeah, and this piano, this room, I haven't been in this room for long. Like, been writing in here for just a couple years now, and so many songs from the record were written on that piano. But there is like always the feeling like when you're in like a new space, have some new instruments that you don't have like time with. You're like, is this gonna work? Is this piano gonna help me write songs, or is it gonna betray me? I'm not superstitious, literally at all. But your mind always just wonders, you're like, oh, I hope I get some good stories from this room and some fun songwrites, and I have so, which is awesome.
That's great, man. So when you write, are you like, do you naturally grab a guitar, or you go to the piano first? Like, what's kind of just natural?
I I just usually go to the piano first, and
Really?
yeah, which is funny because I'm not a great piano player by any means. Like I can just do some block chords only in certain keys. So you can usually tell if I've written something on the piano, it's in G or C, sometimes D. Um, and yeah, at first it just has more. I love the sustain of it too. I can just hold notes for a little longer and just opens me up a little different. But I do write from both, like all the time. But if I'm just gonna sit down and I have a couple minutes, I'm usually not gonna grab a guitar first. These,
Yeah.
but sometimes I do. But normally, just there's something awesome about just sitting down and trying my best at this thing.
Totally. I have always found like what's ever most accessible is what I tend to pick up.
Yeah.
Like if my guitar, like your guitars are on the wall, like mine's like in my case, like under my bed,
Oh yeah, it doesn't
and
belong there. It needs to be out.
yeah, it needs to be out because then you just tend to grab it. I got this keyboard here. It's not hooked in right now. It's a little MIDI controller, but when it's like hooked up and it's just like easier, less barrier to creative entry, so to speak. It's just like tend to like create more. So
I mean, that's why
Um,
I think no matter what, the rest of my life, I have to have a piano somewhere in an open space that's not like tucked away. It's not in some other room. It's just like I'm looking at it, I see it, it's calling to me, you know?
yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, bro, it's been a while since we did one of these. I mean, I don't remember. I think you've probably been on this podcast like a couple times already.
Yeah.
But um, it's always good to catch up. And I wanna, obviously we'll kind of talk songwriting and things like that. But I wonder, like, so we got to connect a little bit at the Worth event, Matt Redman's little conference a few weeks back, and I remember one of the things Matt said about you, or maybe I don't know if he said this in front of everybody, but like how prolific of a songwriter you are. Um, and I've talked to other people even on the podcast where your name has come up, just as uh, like you're just a beast when it comes to like co-writes and ideas and so
Very
I
encouraging. I want you to keep
yeah
going. Yeah.
yeah I'm just gonna keep going for a little while. It's not even a question I'm asking. I'm just propping you up. Like, you're so amazing, Pat Barrett.
Keep it coming.
But like, I want you to talk about just your approach as a writer, or what's made you like the writer that you are today. Where people want to get in a room with you, like they want to co-write with you because you kind of approach it a certain way. Like, can you just kind of break down just your approach to songwriting and being a prolific songwriter?
Oh my gosh. No. I mean, first of all, I don't even really think of myself that way. So this is all very new to me, hearing it framed in that way. But I think what has been a pretty like consistent value of mine, and I remember this like going way back into like middle school, high school when I just started writing songs. Um, I always just had to feel something, right until I feel something, right until it feels. Um, I'm not just hearing lyrics, but I felt a lyric. I'm
Yeah.
not just hearing a melody, like something went beyond the sound, and it all of a sudden it's like a felt experience, even in a little way. So like songs have always like started kind of that way. Um, and I don't mean like the first thing I play, I feel something and that's great. I sit down and I can go through a million ideas before I stop and like, okay, I just felt that. Something
Mm.
just spoke to me beyond what you know, I was moved. And so I actually can remember just kind of graduating college, and anytime I heard someone talk about songwriting, it was always so mysterious. And like, I'm going to tell you how I do this, but I don't really know how to do it. You know the nuts and bolts of it. You sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and you can write anything out you want. You've just written, right? But there's a part of learning your own voice and leaning into your own vernacular and and borrowing from and writing directly from life experiences that embody this like personal connection to it. So songwriting for me was always a way to be really, really, really honest with God and myself. And
Yeah.
um, when I found, at least for me, when I start there, and then I end up with something that I love, I'm always so excited to share it, regardless of how it's received by somebody else.
Hmm.
And I found that to be a really good thing. Like I wish, man, I listen to so many guys. I've heard a lot of guys answer questions similar to that. Like, man, I'm just trying to write songs that the whole world can sing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's very daunting.
Scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. I'm just trying to write a song that helps me see my life through a Jesus colored lens a better way and invites God into what's happening now. And when
Mm.
I found when that happens, all of a sudden, um, I start speaking differently. I'll use different vocabulary. things become more um less like, it's not less theological. It's theological, but it's also, it brings like poetry and expression into it that's always unique to the person. And I think that's why I love co-writes, because when I sit down with somebody, you know, you're hearing and experiencing their perspective, and in their melody choices and their phrasing, you know. Um
Yep.
and so I don't know. I find that to be endlessly um very, it's an endlessly inspired space when you come at it that way and you just bring yourself to the table.
I love that because I feel like um, it's ironic how, you know, we every songwriter wants to be successful and write a big song, but when you tend to think, um, I want to write something big that the world will sing, like you tend to miss the mark. It's almost like the more personal I can be,
Yeah.
um, that is often what will will resonate with more people when you think kind of smaller, I guess, a little bit like what's God doing in my heart right now, and how can I be as honest as I can about it, right?
And honestly, I actually love the way you said that. So I would say I'd rather write something that I want to sing, and then maybe, just maybe, someone else might want to sing that too.
Yeah.
But it always, so, and in that way, it always, like, the piano and songwriting is just another vehicle for communion instead of, you know, comparison,
Mm.
commerce, or
Dude, three C's right there.
another
Comparison,
one,
commerce,
another
communion.
one. Oh, I already said communion. All right, nailed it. You know what I mean? Like, you just,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, worship isn't a means to a career. It's you're just like, this is part of what I do, and even if it wasn't my vocation, there's still going to be a piano in my house, and I'm still going to want to sit down and talk to God
Yeah.
through it, you know. So yeah, I like that approach better. I like it when someone's like, I wrote something that I needed, and this was something that I've been singing. You know, maybe this can help you as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard so many stories of those songs going around the world. You know,
Right.
incidentally.
So Pat, I want you to talk about how hard songwriting is. And maybe for you it doesn't feel super hard. Like I know for me, and I'm not, the level of a songwriter that you are, but songwriting just most of the time, just like I'll sit down and I'll be excited to sit down and write, and then I'm so discouraged. I'm just like, this sucks, man. Like this is just so hard. Like this is terrible. Like why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Like it's just so hard.
Oh, I know.
And I wonder if I just, or as writers, we just tend to get ahead of ourselves where we try to get to some finished product before we just allow like creativity to just breathe. So talk about like what's the last song you wrote that was just incredibly challenging, and how did you kind of fight your way through?
Um, Last song is incredibly challenging. Well, I'm in a few right now that just won't. They don't want to be done. So that's going. But one that was more recently finished, it's called Nobody, and
Yeah.
my record, it's on the Elevation record. That song took like 6 years to write, and
6 years.
like it had an like there was the beginnings of a chorus, not a chorus, a verse idea from years ago, and could never land a chorus that felt right. Plenty of choruses that felt really good, you know. I mean, a lot of them, a lot of them, a lot of them. Different verses that felt good, you just weren't right yet. But there was still like, you know, one thing about me, if again, if I feel like something's moved me, I won't let it go, and I also won't don't feel the need to rush it. Like it's okay for something to cook.
Mm-hmm. Slow cooker.
Yeah, I know. And
Crock pot.
I have noticed, and I actually, it's such an amazing skill set when you write with someone. Like, you know, so many amazing Nashville writers where you sit down and, you know, part of them, they're like, okay, we're on the clock. Let's do this. Let's hammer out an idea and feel good about it. We can tweak and edit later. but let's push something across the line that we can edit. I find writing with that type of person is really great for me.
Yeah. Stretches you in a different way.
Completely. And then
Yeah.
I'm also a serial editor, so I'll edit, edit until it feels like it's time. But that was one of them. Nobody was like, okay, it was done several times until the most recent version. And then you could feel like, okay, no, this is it. This is, I'm excited to share it. And that tells me it's done.
Mm.
So that's kind of my, like, well, when is the song done? No one really ever knows, but I found a good indicator is when I'm excited to share it with somebody. I'm like, okay, I think it's done.
What was the last thing to click with that particular song?
It was a new chorus and new bridge, and then verse.
It was all new.
Literally like a new song. It was a new song. The thing that we were kept and was the verse melodies. The verse melodies and some of the lyric of the first verse. And that's what was like, man, I just keep hearing this. I'd sit down at the piano and I'd play that part. Like it wasn't ready to be done yet, or didn't find the right cocktail of people to be in the room with yet or whatever. But I have so many stories like that. And then I have tons of stories, like a song in the record, Better Hands, that was written in a couple hours with the people with no existing idea. It was just like, oh, let's sing, let's play a progression and just sing and see what happens. So I love both I love. One is more annoying. One that haunts you in the night and refuses to be done. But the discouraging feeling, I'm not sure that ever fully goes away. Like I've never sat down and be like, I'm a great songwriter. I always sit down. I'm like, all right, let's see how long it takes me to quit today.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a built-in humility or humiliation that is good. Like you sit down because it's not about like being awesome. It's about being honest.
Yep.
And those are different. There are different metrics for that. Oh, did you hammer out a catchy hook? Did you play with something with sincerity? Sometimes those can overlap and sometimes they don't,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's always like it's a very humbling experience. And then it's also like, there's not many, like when I sit down at a piano, all I see is possibilities. I don't really see rules. You can play any combination of any note, any inflection of your vocal. It's like a blank canvas. And there's some lessons I feel like I carry over to my life in that too. Like, oh, you think you're stuck and things have to be a certain way? Nuh-uh. Same as a piano. You can enter into your life and anything can change at any moment. You can choose a different combination of notes. You can change the dance a little bit. You can change the time signature. So I love that space for that reason.
Yeah. So the co-writing, so who's a co-writer you've worked with that has like blows your mind consistently in some way? Like, oh my gosh, like how are they this good?
Stephen Furtick is that way.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I see that he's basically listed on every Elevation song, but because I know he's got a musical worship background, but I've always wondered how he is as a writer.
He's a monster writer.
In what way? How?
In explorative creativity, melodies, quick to throw out a bunch of ideas. Oh, not this. What about this? Not this. What about so there's already like an off the line. There's a quantity of good ideas, but there's a quality of good ideas too. And he's like this. Tomlin is like that. where you just have a sense of like what connects with people.
Yeah.
Redman is he always shows up with just mountains of lyrics he's just been sitting on forever that are all just like beautiful.
The most poetic thing you've ever heard.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so I love writing with them, and then there's other guys that I just wrote with Mitch Wong for this record a lot, and Mitch is just he has a like he'll chase any idea, but he'll get he's got like this amazing like zeroing in focus when something's like, no, this is the right idea. I know it's not no, it's not done yet, but I think this is what we need to lean into. He always gets a strong sense of that I love. Yeah, yeah. I think I guess what I love in a co-write is someone who's willing to chase any idea, um, all hopefully with the end goal of feeling like you've written something that feels like it's going to connect with people and be a help because it connects with us. Like if we're loving it, doesn't always mean someone else is going to love it, but that's always a good sign. And when you get someone in the room, you get instant feedback.
Yep.
Good and bad. So,
yeah.
I can't say songwriting's gotten easier. I don't think it has, but I can say that, every year I hope that I'm continually writing more and more like myself,
Yeah.
And I think when people when they bring themselves to the table, like that's where you get the best co-writes.
I love that. So let's talk about this new record, Pat, Shelter. So when I think of Pat Barrett and the music you've released, there's something about it where I feel like the production really serves the song rather than the song like kind of serving some like production goal, if that makes sense. Like, from back at like your House Fires days, the stripped back kind of acoustic, just room, flow, to even a produced record like this where it almost feels like that. Where it's just like, hey, let's just hit record. And I'm sure that more went into it, but that's what I love about it. And I don't know if it's just like the tight production and like overproducing of a lot of tracks. Like that's less interesting, at least to me. I'm just giving my perspective on it.
Sure.
Than, just the basic kind of core of a song, and that's what I've always appreciated about your music is it's just like, it really displays, the song really well. So talk about like, I don't know, your approach to it. Obviously you work with producers, but like your approach to like your sound and the production elements, like on this record and on other stuff that you've done.
Yeah, no, I actually love that you worded it like that because Jonathan Smith produced this album. My friend HB Harold Brown, he co-produced one of the tracks on it with Jonathan. But we went into the album actually. One of the reasons I love music is because I love being in a room when it's being played. That's what I love. I love records too, of course, but maybe it's like the experiential side of a live band playing. Like I just remember growing up, going to all these concerts. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening now. Like I'm hearing it happen now. And it's not perfect. And there's, at some point something's too loud or not loud enough. And I don't know, it always, music in that way it's always been what I lean into more than anything. And so for this record, we played it in a room together live, which is awesome. You
Love
could
it.
overdub, you could do other passes and all that stuff, but I felt like all the way through, I had the camaraderie of playing music with people in a room and not just sending files back and forth, which I love doing that too. Sometimes there's a convenience to that you have to do, but you get 6 guys, 7 guys in a room, you listen through the song, you chart it out together, and then you sit down and you explore a little bit, and you play, and you kind of go on the hunt together. Um, it's exciting because you don't know how it's going to turn out fully,
Yeah.
and there's little what you play affects what somebody else plays, and so there's almost this like you don't always get that when you're just stacking tracks, you know. And the songs I've loved that I've been a part of writing, that I've done it that way, but this album as a whole, that was the experience. We did all the pre-production, which was the songwriting, get the form of the song is to what we think it would feel like. But then we had a week in a studio and we just went for it. And then the last thing you want to do is to try to polish out all the realness that you found that you just spent so much time working towards, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had like little safeguards in there to make sure we weren't just going for the quote unquote perfect take, looking at a grid, but it was the one that was like, no, this feels good. This is the one. Listen to the energy in it. Listen to the way we hit that together, and so there's been a value there from kind of start to finish. But weirdly, it's harder to do that than to actually make it perfect these days. It's easier to make it perfect.
Yep.
Um, so we just try to keep that goal in front of us kind of throughout the whole process. Okay, this sounds good, but does this sound actually so good that it's lost some of the rawness and the spirit? So for some of the vocals, we kept the demo vocal. A lot of them actually,
Amazing.
where I tried to sing it and it sounded like I was trying to sing it instead of on a demo. It's your first pass through, and it's like, oh, this is what just
Wow.
fell out. There's a rawness to it. Um, and I found that I could beat it. I could beat the demo as far as like quality of vocal, but there maybe it's just because I lived with the demo for so long. It's like, no, this is how I wanted to say it, you know. So
Yeah.
it was cool. We had like kind of a mix of all that. That's always what we were listening for.
Well, there's a little rabbit trail here because this is, I feel like, a tension in corporate worship where, with the onset of all this amazing technology, which I'm not criticizing, I think it's been very helpful, but we can essentially, hit play on Ableton and crank through songs just like the record, high excellence, such great quality on the click, just boom, 20-minute set. Nobody's ever done it better, right? But there's something about the in the moment sort of sensitivity to the spirit and the room and what's happening that I think can easily get lost in that.
Yeah.
And so, but I've always felt like you haven't done that, Pat. Like, you've just the way you are, it's like, I'm going to sing something spontaneously and kind of see where it goes. I'm going to lean into what I feel the Holy Spirit saying in this moment. So challenge us along those lines. Like, how do you approach that? How do you keep yourself from sort of getting in that, getting stuck in sort of like a playlist of songs instead of the moment?
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, I know I know that feeling as well. So
Yeah. Right.
there's been plenty of times where I got done with a set and I finished it. I'm like, Pat, where were you just then? I know you nailed all the songs or whatever. You hit the set, but you weren't here. You were somewhere else. You were,
Yeah.
and I mean, I have to say, Ableton and multi-tracks and Loop Community and all these amazing resources have upped the quality for all of us, which is just quality and consistency. And
Amazing.
I couldn't be more thankful for that. I think sometimes as as leaders, we defer our leadership to a machine instead of letting it rest on our shoulders like it should. And I think that's where it's easy to become a servant to the playlist or the production instead of letting, okay, what needs to happen now, and let's adjust our production to this. So, I remember talking to someone years ago who he referenced I heard it Uzzah growing up, but Uzzah who touches the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh yeah.
Um, and he talked about it because the Ark was on a cart and it was about to tip, so he thought he was being helpful. And it was the worst thing he could have done for himself. But the point this pastor was trying to make um, it wasn't that he touched the ark. It was that the ark was actually never supposed to be placed on a cart ever. It was supposed to rest on the shoulders of priests. And so the only reason the ark started to tip is because it was being carried in a way it actually should never have been carried in the first place. We've created a man-made cart that's just going to usher in, sometimes our systems they give us convenience, but they take away the pressure of leadership. And it's supposed to rest on your shoulders. Like the Levites wore what we've probably talked about this on some podcasts actually. Like their gowns were to remind them of their responsibility. They had 12 rubies on their chests, so they wore the people of Israel, the 12 tribes, over their heart. It was always like about people and connection and not just nailing a slick set. And I think you can combine the two. I think you can have like an amazing, just knock it out of the park, Abletoned in song, but you can always feel when someone goes off the script and what happens in a room. Everyone just leans in.
Yeah.
And weirdly, have you ever been to an improv? When was the last time you went to an improv comedy show?
Dude, that's terrifying to think about.
Okay. Well, the feeling it's terrifying is even as the audience, you're nervous the whole time because you're like, I don't know what they're going to do because I know they don't know what they're going to do. And now we're all here together. It's a different type of relationship. And I think when you can have both of those things firing, what you know is going to happen, and then space for who knows what's going to happen. When those can coexist together, it just takes you out of autopilot. And so I try to make sure those are in every single set. Hey, we're going to run this through probably top to bottom. But after this one, we're just going to leave some space and just see.
Yeah.
And that's just been a really easy, simple, practical way to ensure that I just don't cruise on ahead and become a karaoke playlist.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, a lot of times as worship leader, we just sort of cut people off from leaning in. Like they're ready to, but we just go on to the next thing, and it's like they're not given that opportunity to go to that next level, to just kind of worship freely. And all it takes is, hey, we're just going to pause here for a minute, maybe get this chord progression going. Maybe it's 30 seconds long, maybe it's 5 minutes long, whatever it is. Just let it breathe.
Yeah, let it breathe. And in the most practical way, if I had 15 minutes to lead, instead of choosing 3 songs, I'd choose 2.5.
That's good.
So then it's actually impossible to rush through. It forces you to wait.
Yeah. But that's scary. It's easier to just fill it with songs.
Yeah, it's easier to fill it with songs, and because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But when it's built in again, I found that to be so helpful for me, and requires like a surrender every time. Like, okay, I just want to be present, and maybe nothing else happens. Maybe we just sit for a while and no spontaneity happens, but leaving the opportunity for space. I think there's a joy and a faith in that doesn't ever ruin a service. It doesn't sacrifice quality. And
Yeah.
actually invites people into a feeling of like, oh, I don't have to rush through this like I rush through the rest of my life.
So good. What's a song, Pat, that you've written that, maybe a lot of people sing it, maybe not, but it came out of a spontaneous moment?
Gosh. Um, the song The Way did.
Okay.
Um, I, which is hilarious. We were like circling some progression. I can't remember what other song we were singing, but I wrote the bridge. All of a sudden, I just felt the lyrics to the bridge. It's a new horizon. I'm set on you, and you meet me here today with mercies that are new. I was feeling these lyrics so fast, like hit me. I grabbed a pen, I grabbed my Bible, and wrote it in the units of weights and measures page in my Bible because it was just like, I think I just have to write this the way I'm hearing it. So I just wrote it and sang it, and then that forever stayed the bridge. It was before there was ever even a different part to that song. Um, yeah, but it's funny. Like any all songwriting comes from some element of spontaneity.
Right.
There was a thought that hit you that you're like, oh, I should lean into that, or even a want, like, oh, I want to write a song about this. Like even like it's always a mix of like calculated and just open to what catches, what
Yeah.
catches you and feels important to you at that moment in time. So gosh, so many songs. There's that. Parts of Build My Life came out spontaneously. The chorus did. Um, and what else? Um, the newer record, You Know What I Need. There's that chorus came out
Yep.
spontaneous, sitting down to just sing because I was worried about stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, it's awesome. Bro, this record, I love it. Um, it's like what we talked about, just it's kind of has that live feel to it. There's a lot of like soul to it. Like a number of the songs just have some, I don't know, just little gospel like
Yeah.
soul to them. I don't know any other way to say it. Um, you know what my favorite song is? Um, How We Remember.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I don't know. I tend to, I view a lot of songs through worship leading, and like what songs are just really good for certain moments, and How We Remember is like, I mean, can you actually write a better communion song? I don't
Right.
think so. I don't think so.
Well, it's all just ripped straight out of scripture. So I think
Right.
you start there, it's kind of easy. But it's funny, like with that, I grew up in a church, and a lot of Protestants, this is not the norm. Like we we had communion every Sunday,
Yeah.
no exceptions. It wasn't like, how's this service gonna end? It was like, oh, we're gonna worship. There's gonna be a reading. We're gonna read the confession together. We're gonna hear a sermon, and then we're gonna come to the table. And so every single Sunday, I heard my dad recite that on the night our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was betrayed. He took the bread and he broke it, gave thanks, gave it to his disciples, and said, "This is my body, broken for you." Like I realized with that song, um, I've become a little saddened that for something that was there was such um tradition, and it was like this always happens, how little I'm around it now. They do this often in remembrance of me. Like I'm in a lot of spaces that it's not done very often, um, which is
Yeah.
saddening, actually. Really, really saddening to me. Um, so this song, it had this special, like, oh my gosh, it felt like growing up. It felt like a deep breath. It felt like a um in other ways, it feels like such a correction, or a not a correction, a critique of our current celebrity culture as well. Because could you
Mm,
imagine someone going to take the to receive the Eucharist and trying to garner attention for themselves while doing it? Like there's no greater like practical experience than we all come to the table of the Lord.
yeah, there's nothing more humbling.
And if anyone comes to the table and tries to use the table for their own attention or their own fame or their own career or their own self-importance, it would look embarrassing. Like what a um, visual critique of some of the things that we've created and we've celebrated, you know. So
Yeah.
um, I've loved that song for a number of reasons, and I just it always just reminds me we all need Jesus, and um, any part of me that would ever try to steal attention from myself in my life, when I see that picture, it's an easy repent. You know,
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
So I love like there's a wide breadth in these songs where you sort of have your like I guess theological heavy hitters. You know, you have like a Nobody or This Is How We Remember. You know, where you're just like really kind of diving into like theology, and then you have other songs that are simpler. You know, more so just like expressions of like joy. Um, you know, I'm thinking of like Every Good Thing. Not that it's not theological. You know what I mean, though. Um,
Yeah,
but it's a little there's different types of songs. Um, how do you approach that as a writer to know like okay what direction should this song go? Like how
yeah.
do we dig super deep lyrically and theologically, or is this just like hey let's just write a fun song?
Yeah, dude, like Every Good Thing, what we I started playing that progression, that just acoustic, sounds like just 80s jangle acoustics. Um, and it just made me so happy, the progression did. And when I wrote that, when that was written, it was like a song of gratefulness, which it felt lighthearted, but really gratefulness is not lighthearted. It's one of
Mm,
those things that changes your whole life. Like every single good thing that has ever happened in your life comes from somewhere. And it was like I needed a song to be thankful and smile along the way, and even smile through the things that I wish hadn't happened. And I still found God in them. You can still find a place to be grateful there as well. So, maybe that song in particular, there's a couple songs that maybe like 5 years ago I probably wouldn't have felt as comfortable sharing, or would have felt like, oh, this is too simple and playful and joyful. But I don't know. I just these days I like the simpler things, that like, okay, I no matter what I have, I know every good thing comes from God.
yeah.
And there's a song called Beautiful Life that um it's kind of out of Ecclesiastes, like, doesn't mean it's always going to feel all right, but it'll be a gift if you hold it right. Oh, what a beautiful life. Time for
Yeah.
weeping, a time for laughing, there's a time for everything under the sun. Like life experienced as a gift from God. And also in our discipleship to Jesus, realizing he entered into the same thing to show us and to walk with us and to be a great high priest through it all. So that's why, like, what songs do I include? What songs do I not? Which ones should be fun and playful? Which songs should be, theologically focused in that specific category of song? I think it all matters to God.
Mm.
And I think we see in scriptures that he not only did he participate in it, um, but we see extreme joy and we see pain and we see Jesus go through a lot of emotions as
Yeah.
he stays in communion. And so for me, what that does for songwriting, it just opens the song field wide open. You know,
Yeah.
what topic is off limits and what
Yeah.
emotions can't be explored when you're pointing them Godward. And so yeah, I feel like this album probably feels like the most like me.
Mm.
Um, all those elements together, and it was kind of hard to fight for that, you know, in myself. Like, okay, I feel like some you want to lean into things being more serious sometimes, but really joy, unforced joy, like not manufactured. Like it's just like, oh, being grateful, and simple songs about that are really powerful.
Yeah.
I found that.
No, it's so good. I had a conversation with Chris Llewellyn from Ren Collective a few weeks back, you know, and just they as a group, like that was like their goal was like, how do we like celebrate, you know, like worship music can get so like intense, you know, and it's like celebration and praise and clapping your hands and shouting unto God with a voice of triumph. These are just as biblical, these themes, you know, but they're like, those kind of songs are so much harder to write than
Right.
the serious ones.
They are.
I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, Pat, this has been so fun, man. I love this record. Oh yeah, Scatter too is probably one of my favorites. That song is just super fun. Like it starts with a bass, right?
Yeah.
Like who starts a song with a bass unless it's like Trading My Sorrows from back in the day? It's like, come on.
Yeah. You know what's also funny about that? Okay, Scatter. I grew up my dad's church. Here we go again. Every single Sunday, he would say, he'd read out Psalm 68, or he wouldn't read out. He would recite, and he'd say, "Let God arise," and people in the congregation would say, "And his enemies be scattered."
Yeah.
I heard that growing up, you know, 4 times a Sunday, every Sunday of my entire life.
It's in you. It's in your psyche.
My psyche. I know it really is. So like, yeah, there's like, and you're singing the Psalms, and you're quoting the scriptures, and you're singing songs of worship that are prophetically, you know, declaring places in your life that are confronting every evil thing that would come against you or come against the work of God in your life. Like songs like that, songs of gratitude that do the same thing. Choosing gratefulness in the middle of loss and obedience in the middle of difficulty, like Job did, like that. When all those are on the table and being sung about and experienced, all of a sudden your life doesn't feel as compartmentalized. And then, you know, hopefully you start to realize, wow, if I can sing about all this stuff, and maybe in my whole life as well, like God's everywhere. He's waiting to
Yeah.
meet me in every moment, in every emotion, in every circumstance, and to have music that can accompany that. Oh my gosh, the people have done that for me. That what a gift. Like I'm forever grateful for songwriters that have written songs about some obscure feeling things that have helped me find God in that emotion. So
Yep.
right on.
Love it.
Everybody needs to write everything.
Just no topic is off topic. You know, it's awesome. Well, Pat, what do you want to let our listeners know about? Like this podcast, people are probably listening to this. It's likely 2024. Where do you want them to go? Where are you going to be? What are you super excited about? Tell us.
Yeah, I'm going on tour with Phil Wickham and Benjamin William Hastings. Should go by all my names too. Joseph Patrick Martin Barrett.
You totally should.
Or something.
I interviewed him and I was like, do I have to call you Benjamin William Hastings or can I call you Ben?
No, you don't.
So
Honor him with his full name. His given name. So that's like the majority of the spring is on tour with him, and then Fall plans are coming together. Got some things I'm really excited about that we'll announce shortly. But
Ooh, top secret. We can't know yet.
top secret. I mean, it's not really top secret, just not ironed out. And again,
Yeah.
all plans change. I'm not stupid. This ain't my
That's
first
right.
video.
Hold it loosely. We're flexible here.
I just held everything loosely. So that would be great. Yeah, come out and hang out on any of those dates this spring.
Awesome. And make sure everybody goes and listens to Shelter wherever fine music is found. I mean, I've been asking this, like, do you still make CDs? Like, is that a thing?
Do you know what's funny? When I signed my record deal in 2018, they were like, this will probably be the last time we ever make albums. I was like, what do you mean? Like physical? He's like, there's going to come a time when you won't really have CDs. And I couldn't see it even then. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
So now we'll still do like limited prints.
Yeah.
But only when you're doing like a concert or something like that.
Right. Yeah. People aren't going to like christianbook.com and ordering a Pat Barrett CD.
No, you're going to Amazon.com. There's probably some
people aren't doing that either.
Spotify or Apple Music or
right. Pat, so fun, man. Thanks for what you're doing. I appreciate you, brother, and thanks for taking some time today.
Yeah, thank you.